A more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm your host and White House correspondent, Dr. Nii-Quartelai, reporting for duty. I'm in touch until you be in touch. Follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, D-R-N-I-I-Q, and there I am, fresh for you to follow. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. And there we are for your listening pleasure. Last but not least, be sure to subscribe to a More Perfect Union podcast. That way, you'll never miss an episode. You'll always have us right there in the palm of your hand. And if you're sitting next to your neighbor, tap your neighbor on the shoulder and tell them to do the same. All right? While we're telling folks to do stuff, I want to remind you of our KBLA Talk 1580 4th anniversary event that's fast approaching, and seating at all four, count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, of our special events is getting tight. Have you registered at our KBLA1580.com website? Well, if not, let me encourage you to stop and do it right now so you don't get left out. It's our 4th anniversary, and we want to celebrate it with you. And if you're planning on joining us for our 4th anniversary celebration and barbecue on the Juneteenth holiday, we're asking everyone, including you, to bring a food gift card of any amount for the victims of the Altadena fire. Grocery store chain or restaurant, whatever it is, we're grateful for whatever you bring to help these families that are still displaced by the wildfires. So go to our KBLA1580.com website right now and sign up for the events that you plan to attend. All of our anniversary events are free, but seating is limited, so you got to register. So thanks in advance for doing that. And with that, it's time for your National News Roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. And kicking us off, NBC News is reporting that things are not getting any easier in LA. In fact, fury and resignation around the world as Trump's travel ban comes roaring back. Countries across the world were in shock today after President Trump announced a travel ban on nationals from a dozen countries and the cancellation of a visa program for 7 more. And so you got that happening, in addition to what is afoot in Los Angeles, where NBC News is reporting that over 200 folks have been arrested in Los Angeles. The National Guard is to be deployed in Texas as rallies continue nationwide. This is what we know right now. The National Guard has been deployed to Texas. Governor Greg Abbott said that he'll deploy the Texas National Guard across the state to, quote, ensure peace and order ahead of the planned protests in San Antonio. Troops in LA. President Donald Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, they authorized deployment of about 700 Marines and more than 2,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles. Thousands of people. Have you seen the video? I've certainly seen the video. You go on social media, you can't miss the video of thousands of people across the country who joined at least 25 demonstrations and rallies opposing ICE raids just yesterday, from California to New York, with several arrests. Several more protests are planned in numerous cities. And just a reminder of how we got here. You know, protests erupted after ICE officers carried out raids on Friday in 3 locations across Los Angeles, where dozens of people were taken into custody. Governor Gavin Newsom of California called the raids chaotic federal sweeps that aim to fill an arbitrary arrest quota. And in case you're wondering about the tension between President Trump and Governor Newsom, well, the borders are. Tom Homan, remember, he threatened Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass with arrest if they impede troop deployment efforts. Well, Newsom responded saying, Tom, go ahead and arrest me. Let's go. And we haven't seen it yet. Mayor Bass and LA area mayors say the raids are creating an atmosphere of fear. Bass slammed the Trump administration for trying to cause fear and panic, adding that deploying military and National Guard troops was a drastic and chaotic escalation and completely unnecessary. On Capitol Hill, we've heard that Senator Chris Coons condemns the deploying of Marines and National Guard to LA, saying that, quotes, our Marines are trained for combat in the Indo-Pacific, not for securing the streets of Los Angeles. He went on to say, and in a situation where state and local law enforcement leaders have repeatedly said that they had everything under control, there is no crisis or insurrection that justifies the use of combat troops. Senator Coons saying, I would urge the administration and the secretary to reconsider. And again, more than 200 people face charges of failure to disperse after the curfew. You might remember that Mayor Bass put a very limited curfew in place for limited areas around downtown. Well, those 200 folks, face a charge of failure to disperse. In addition, 17 people were arrested on a charge of curfew violation. That's according to the Los Angeles Police Department. Others were taken into custody on charges of possessing a firearm, assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer, and discharging a laser at a police airship. And so lots afoot in California and across the country. And it's worth noting that U.S. immigration officials are raiding California farms as Trump ramps up this conflict. The Guardian reporting that U.S. immigration officials have increased, quotes, enforcement activity in California, California's agricultural heartland, as the conflict between the state and Donald Trump's administration intensifies. At this hour, immigrant advocacy groups reported multiple actions across the state where an estimated 255,000 farm workers are undocumented, and so that agents pursued workers through blueberry fields and staged operations at agricultural facilities. When we come forward, I'm looking forward to welcoming an author that has written a very timely book. Maria Foscarinis will be joining us to talk about her life's work around homelessness and a book that we should all add to our collection. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Coverage varies by plan. View contract and exclusions at endurancewarranty.com.
Do you own a 2005 or newer vehicle with a manufacturer's warranty about to expire or no warranty coverage at all? With the cost of living on the rise, Endurance is now offering a low-cost vehicle coverage plan designed to save you thousands off costly vehicle repairs. Get your vehicle protected under this coverage and have all future covered auto repairs paid directly to the repair shop for you. Roadside service, towing, and rental coverage are included. For your free quote, call 800-689-5978. 800-689-5978.
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now you could say goodbye to stand-up gush fears. Thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable. With Always, fear no gush.
1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. You ready?
Somebody make some noise in this joint.
KBLA Talk 1580 celebrates its 4th anniversary this year on Juneteenth.
Here we go again.
Hard to believe 4 years has gone by so fast.
Oh my God.
But here we are, still standing, still loving and serving our people as best we can.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
To celebrate our 4th anniversary, we have 4 big events, and you're invited to all of them.
She got a lot to say. Let's do this.
Let's get it on.
On Wednesday, June 18th, we go live on C-SPAN for the second consecutive year with our Climate Justice Plus Black Health Symposium. Tavis Smiley will moderate an all-star panel of thinkers and influencers as we continue our vitally important climate justice work.
Hey, Tavis Smiley, talk about.
On Thursday, June 19th, you're invited to join us as we celebrate Juneteenth and our 4th anniversary. There will be plenty of food, fun, great music, good vibes, and all of your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts will be there.
Yeah, man.
Flip the beat. On Saturday, June 21st, there are 2 big events you're invited to attend.
I can't wait to hear it.
This year, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its annual partnership with the Empowerment Congress for a community celebration and dialogue to educate, engage, and empower. This year's theme is resilience in the face of chaos.
Can't wait to see what's up next.
Y'all ain't ready for this.
And new this year is our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium, moderated by Dominique DePrima, with a luncheon to follow. Dominique will be leading a dialogue with some of the most impactful Black women leaders in Los Angeles, and you're invited to join.
This is it.
All of these events are free, but seating is limited, so you must register in advance at our KBLA1580.com website, where you can find all the details you need about each event.
Check it out.
It's our 4th anniversary, and we would love to celebrate it with you.
I love you guys so much. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're KBLA Talk 1580.
The only black talk radio station west of the Mississippi.
Thank you for having our black.
Happy anniversary, KBLA.
Love you. Love you.
Hit me.
National News The Consequence. Informed opinion. And analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and really delighted to welcome my next guest, whose book could not come out at a more timely moment for our nation. The title of her new book is And Housing for All, The Fight to End Homelessness in America. Please welcome Maria Foscarinis. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nii-Quartelai. I'm happy to be here with you.
Well, so happy to have you here. First things first, I want to give you an opportunity to share your initial reaction to the protests, not just in the city and county of Los Angeles, but across the country. We are seeing an increased presence of National Guard that have been federalized, that are taking to our streets. Based on the content of your new book, there's already a lot happening on our streets across the country. In your view, how does the National Guard presence make matters worse?
It makes matters much worse. The last thing we need right now is more police and actually military presence on the streets. It's not a good thing for protests. Protests are important to our country and to our democracy. It's very important that people have the opportunity to express themselves. And for people who are homeless and literally living in our streets and other public places, this is just going to make matters that much worse. There's already an epidemic of criminalization across the country, and this will only make it worse.
Now, hearing you say that, I can't help but wonder about your work and specifically how you talk about what's happening at the intersection of homelessness, immigration, and policing. We know that we could easily spend an hour or more on each one of those issue areas. But part of what to me is so compelling about your new book, And Housing for All, The Fight to End Homelessness in America, is that you remind us that homelessness is complex. It's not just a matter of somebody being down on their luck and not being able to secure housing, but our homelessness crisis is racialized. Our homelessness crisis, is the result of putting the poor at a severe disadvantage systemically. And so talk to us about the relationship between immigration, homelessness, and policing, because I'm not sure if those connections, those dots are being connected as well in the national media.
Well, there's a lot of intersections where homelessness is concerned. As you point out, Nii-Quartelai, it's the intersection of homelessness and race. Immigration also plays a role. Essentially, homelessness is really the extreme tip of many different issues, which are all tied into inequality. There's tremendous inequality in our country today. There's income inequality, there's wealth inequality, and the people who are most affected by this are people who are marginalized to begin with in so many different ways, whether it's based on race. That's often the case. Race is an easy way for people to be othered, for people to be treated as not true members of society and thus not entitled to the wealth that is present here in our country. And so, immigration status is also a way to treat people differently, to put people at a disadvantage. There are other ways. Gender certainly is one. Ethnic background is another. There are many ways that people can be marginalized and left at the bottom. And I think that's really what homelessness is about. It's about the failure to share resources in an equitable way, to distribute resources in an equitable way so that everybody has a safe, decent, affordable home, which is a human right and has been acknowledged by our own country in the past as a basic human right. But right now, we're very far from that. We've set goals of housing for all in this country decades ago, but those have not been met, and that's a result of deliberate systemic policy failures.
And speaking of systemic policy failures, we're still only a few years out from the once in 100-year pandemic. I'm talking about the COVID pandemic, where the federal government put a lot of money on the streets. The federal government invested a lot in infrastructure, invested a lot in our nation's schools, invested a lot in housing. And there are folks who are a little less familiar with the issue area that say, okay, well, it looks like we tried. And maybe, the government should, divest from these investments and leave it up to the private sector, leave it up to the social sector. What do you say to folks that make that argument?
I say that that's wrong because, yes, during the pandemic, the government did invest and invested some significant resources, but that was a short-term investment. While those investments were in place, we did see progress when money was put towards providing housing for people, when there was an eviction moratorium to give people who'd lost their jobs some breathing room so that they didn't immediately lose their housing. That made a difference. But those investments and those moratoria were lifted, and we saw the results. Without those investments, homelessness actually increased post-pandemic. Now, of course, we're at a very different moment where those investments are far in the past. And so now we're back to where we've been for years, which is that, the help is not there. Right now, only 1 in 4 of people who are poor enough to qualify for housing assistance actually receive it. Only 1 in 4. So that means everybody else is on their own. The private sector is not meeting this challenge. In fact, the private sector is driving a lot of this crisis. Housing now has become a vehicle for profit. That's because it's really been left to the private market. The federal government has divested and has been divesting for decades. federal government used to spend money to ensure that there would be housing available for everybody who needed it. But that all changed beginning in the early 1980s when there was a big disinvestment in housing and other social safety net programs. This was instigated by President Reagan, who also had a goal of making America great.
That's right.
He was the originator of that phrase. And he came into office on a platform to shrink the federal government. And he did. And housing took a huge hit, and it's never recovered. And since then, housing markets have been increasingly deregulated and increasingly been targeted by private sector for profit. And that's where we are today. And it's, this is a basic human need. Housing, everybody, is something that everybody needs. All human beings need a safe, decent, affordable place to live. And yet it's been left up to the private market whether you have it. If you don't have the money and it's increasingly expensive, I think everybody is feeling the impact of that, of the skyrocketing rents and costs of housing. If you can't afford that, you're out of luck in a lot of places.
And I think one of the things that people may lose sight of, that folks may not connect, is that not only are we experiencing a crisis in terms of accessibility to housing, where our housing supply has not kept up with demand, but we're also experiencing an affordability crisis at the same time, which is exacerbating that. And so, Maria, I've got to ask you, drawing on over 35 years of experience in national advocacy and really concentrating on some of the root causes of homelessness. You just mentioned former President Ronald Reagan, the originator of Make America Great Again. To what degree does this moment feel like deja vu? On a scale from 1 to 10, how much of this moment is a deja vu? And, what should we be preparing for that we may not be preparing for as well as we should in this moment?
It's definitely a deja vu. I'm not sure I can rate it adequately. It's very much a deja vu, but it's deja vu plus, I would say. It's worse. I mean, I think that this moment is worse than the original Make America Great moment. Ronald Reagan came in. I mean, here's the commonalities I see. So Ronald Reagan came in wanting to shrink the federal government. Plus, he had a narrative about how government is bad. He famously said the scariest words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." So that's a message that government is bad. And that's a dangerous narrative because government is really all of us. It's us acting collectively. That's what it's supposed to be. And so that was his narrative. He had a specific narrative about homelessness and about poor people. So he claimed that homelessness is a lifestyle choice. People choose to live in public, as if somehow homelessness came about just out of nowhere because people woke up one day and decided they wanted to live on the street. So that's a very dangerous narrative, and it's a narrative that continues to this day, and it's been embraced, I think, often unthinkingly, in a bipartisan manner. I mean, we see Governor Newsom with the same narrative. Homelessness is a choice. People need to, and even claiming people need to be helped to be not homeless through these laws criminalizing their public presence. So that's a dangerous narrative that is with us today. And I think it's worse because it's been embraced more broadly. And I also think that what the Trump administration is doing now with their 2025 project playbook is very dangerous, and certainly their plans on homelessness are worse even than anything Reagan dreamed up, and they're broader with the attacks on democracy.
Maria, do you think that the American people have given up on homelessness? Do you think that the American people are comfortable with, any sort of charitable activities related to addressing homelessness? But in terms of aggressively, or dare I say courageously, getting at the root causes of homelessness in this country, do you think America is fatigued and maybe just not that into it right now?
I don't actually think that. I know it can seem that way, but I don't think that that's really the situation. I think people understand increasingly that homelessness is part of the larger housing problem. Housing affordability crisis is now affecting a lot of people. A lot of Americans are feeling the impact of skyrocketing housing costs. A lot of people, over 60% of people, are living paycheck to paycheck. I think they understand that, any emergency can put them literally at risk of homelessness. And so I think there is a greater understanding that homelessness is not something sort of strange or unique. It's something that is part of a bigger problem. And so, people may not necessarily be conscious of this or understand it fully, but I think there's the potential is there for people to really understand that this is about something larger. It's a systemic issue. And I think there is the potential for people to mobilize for bigger solutions. Charitable acts are important. I know a lot of people volunteer in shelters or in soup kitchens, and that's important. I don't think people should stop doing that, but it's not the solution. It's, a Band-Aid. But the real solutions are systemic, and people can help and be involved by using their voices and their advocacy.
When we come forward, Maria is going to share some of the voices that really help to inform her new book that is out. And so go and check it out. And Housing for All, The Fight to End Homelessness in America. Maria, of course, is the founder of the National Homelessness Law Center. And in pulling this book together, she reveals the human impact of the housing crisis by sharing personal stories and examining flawed policies that have perpetuated homelessness in this country. We're going to hear a little bit about some of those stories when we come forward. And I'm also going to ask her, there was one chapter that she would assign to President Trump. What would it be? You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Maria Foscarinis, author of And Housing for All, when we come forward.
The audience is listening. Thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass says ICE raids targeting everyday people are unacceptable and called for them to end.
These aren't the criminals the administration is allegedly targeting. These are mothers and fathers, restaurant workers, seamstress, home care workers, everyday Angelenos trying to make a living.
She joined other local mayors in condemning the actions and has imposed an overnight curfew in part of downtown LA following days of protest. Former Clayton County Sheriff Victor Hill, who is Black, says he's running for Congress in Georgia's 5th District. A Democrat, Hill is focused on crime and prison reform after serving 18 months for civil rights violations. And Black Maryland Governor Wes Moore is sending out nearly $460,000 in disaster recovery aid to Allegheny County after last month's historic flooding. Over 200 homes and businesses were affected. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA, a national nonprofit, offers more than 1,000 free online resources for youth and high school sports coaches, parents, students, and administrators. Visit PCADevZone.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man.
1 year from today, the 2026 Soccer World Cup is scheduled to jump off here in Los Angeles. People from around the world will be in LA for at least a month for one of the premier events in all of sports. With LA facing turmoil from immigration protests and soldiers on the streets, what will LA look like a year from now? Will people from so many countries feel comfortable coming to the U.S.? LA has a year to get ready for a major sporting event and a major economic windfall. Will that be enough time for LA to move past the trauma in recent days and be the positive destination World Cup officials are hoping for? The New York Knicks are having a hard time with their process to hire a new coach. After firing Tom Thibodeau 2 weeks ago, they have been denied permission to talk with 3 coaches: Jason Kidd at Dallas, Ime Udoka at Houston, and Chris Finch at Minnesota. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Black voices, they matter here, and we've got a lot to talk about. KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and Brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael B. Jordan, they now have a yoga and wellness studio in Los Angeles called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at WalkGoodLA. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and she is Maria Foscarinis. And she is the author of And Housing for All, The Fight to End Homelessness in America. You might know her as the founder of the National Homelessness Law Center. And what's so interesting to me about this book, because there's lots of books out there related to the topic, but you actually made it a point to focus in on the human impact. And you examined sort of the human impact piece, and also you zeroed in on some of the flawed policies that have perpetuated homelessness in this country. Talk to us about one or two of the more memorable human impact stories that really inspired you to write this book.
So one of the stories that really sticks out in my mind, it concerns Danny, a native Denverite. who was working and not making enough money to pay for housing. And his job involved an overnight shift. The shelter in Denver had a 5 p.m. curfew. And so even if it was available, which it often was not, the shelter was often full, there was no way that Danny could get into it because he was working and he didn't want to give up his job. So Danny was living outside under a tarp. And Denver gets very cold, and it was snowing, and he was living outside in the snow and noticed that he was aware of the dangers of frostbite, and he noticed that he was at risk of frostbite, went to the emergency room, just got sent home with painkillers, and eventually gangrene set in, and he had to go get back to the emergency room, and he had to have one of his legs amputated below the knee, his 5 toes on his other leg removed. Yikes. And there was an advocate working with him, someone from Mutual Aid, who filmed him. Danny was eager for his story to be told. So she filmed him, and it was actually on TV, local TV in Denver. And it's a very powerful story. I talked to Danny, and he emphasized that the solution to homelessness, what he called the epidemic of homelessness, is housing. And he was very, very clear about that. And of course, he's right. It is housing. It's not that hard. This is someone who lost his limbs because of the failure of our country to put housing in place. And it's heartbreaking, but to me, it's also enraging because we're not living in a poor country. This is a very wealthy country. This is a country that has the resources to make sure that every single person has a safe, decent, affordable place to live. And yet, this country is making a political choice, because that's what it is, not to provide those resources, not to make sure that everyone has a place to live. So that's shocking to me, and it's enraging. And I think it's just a sign of what we need to do, and we need to listen and hear Danny's voice calling on us to make sure that there is housing for all.
Now, Maria, our leaders, learners, and listeners, they know this. You may not know this. I travel quite a bit, living between Washington, D.C. and Los Angeles. And I can tell you, between those two cities and so many cities in between, when I am driving around a downtown area or an area even outside of downtown in these cities, I noticed some striking similarities in terms of who the homeless population is, right? I see men and women, but very often I see a lot of Black homeless people. And I'm not sure if people even think about homelessness as a Black issue. Should we?
Absolutely, because Black Americans are disproportionately affected by homelessness. The statistics are, tell the story. Something like 40% of homeless people are Black, and something like 12 to 13% of the total American population is Black. So there's a reason for this disproportionate impact. And it goes beyond just the disproportionate impact of poverty. I mean, it's also true that a percentage of the poverty population is Black than the general population, but it's more striking and the impact is greater with homelessness, and that reflects discrimination in housing. I mean, Black Americans were deliberately kept out of housing. I mean, we hear about redlining. We hear about the failure to give loans for mortgages or to give mortgages on fair terms to Black people. people being targeted for subprime mortgages. So these are impacts of that discrimination in housing, as well as many other areas of American life, jobs, education. It's a long list of ways that Black Americans have been kept out. So it's not surprising that in this most extreme form of exclusion, this most extreme form of inequality, we see Black Americans overly represented.
Maria, before the break, I had asked you if there was a chapter in this book that you might assign to President Trump, that you might even assign to Governor Newsom, as you mentioned him earlier. Which chapters of your book would you assign and why?
So I know that the president is not known for reading, so I might just have a little snippet for him. And that snippet could be focused on money. So money is important because it costs more to not house people. It would actually save money to house people. And there are studies that document this, that it's more expensive to allow homelessness to continue. There's huge expenses in terms of emergency room use. People, don't have access to health care or health insurance. They use emergency rooms. Cities deploy police and states deploy police to remove people, which does no good and does harm. That costs a lot of money, deploying police resources, court resources, prosecutors. So it would save money to actually end homelessness. So that's what I would recommend to President Trump, since he seems particularly interested. It's maybe being a little facetious. I think everybody is interested in not wasting money. But for President Trump in particular, I think that's a critical point. So for Governor Newsom, that's also a key point, I think. But I think also that, if Governor Newsom wants to present himself as a leader in the Democratic Party, well, don't channel Reagan, don't channel these policies that are really essentially racist, but also harmful and will not advance true solutions. If you want to really be productive and be a kind of new generation leader, embrace things that actually work, solutions that actually work. Look to countries that are really solving homelessness, like Finland, and to housing policies like those in Vienna that look at housing as a social good and invest in housing and actually solve the problem.
Speaking of the next generation, what do you hope that the next generation of policy leaders, of housing activists and advocates, what do you hope that they glean from your book and Housing for All, the fight to end homelessness in America?
Well, I hope we can come together around a larger vision. So Housing for All, the idea of viewing housing as a basic human right, and viewing homelessness as a human rights issue, I think is really critical. Let's not cede ground. There are solutions that are very targeted, like lists of people by name, assessing vulnerability of individuals. Those help people, they help individual people, but we have to really embrace a larger vision. And that has to be focused on basic human rights. And I'm focused in the book on housing as a human right, but there are other pieces to this. There's also healthcare. There's jobs and a living wage, those are all part of the same thing. Housing is my focus because housing is very fundamental. Without housing, these other pieces are really hard to address. Without a home, it's hard to address mental health issues. It's hard to address substance abuse issues. It's hard to address work issues, although a lot of people without homes actually do work. So we need to address living wage and work supports that make that possible. But having a stable home is really fundamental, and that's my focus, and I think it needs to be our focus going forward.
Maria, in our remaining minutes, I've got to ask you about the Olympics. A few days ago, Tavis Smiley and Dominique DePrima, a number of folks that are part of the KBLA family, we hosted a 3-hour special on Sunday. And one of the folks that we spoke with about the current crisis in LA, that it seems to be metastasizing across the country with these ice raids, we spoke to the Advancement Project co-founder and civil rights attorney Connie Rice. And she focused like a heat missile on the Olympics and, very provocatively suggested that maybe we might decide to cancel the Olympics because of the number of people, particularly immigrants, that might be negatively impacted if these ice raids are allowed to continue. What say you about the opportunities and challenges that world events like the Olympics offer when it comes to addressing some of the root causes of homelessness in our country?
Well, world events like the Olympics have been notorious in the past for becoming opportunities for cities to sweep people away, people considered undesirable. So they're often accompanied by upticks in criminalization. City leaders don't want visible poverty. The world is coming to their city and they don't want the world to see that people are poor and homeless. And that's very telling because, it clashes with the image that America has of itself as being a place where everyone is treated fairly. I don't think that the solution is to cancel these events. The solution is to view this as an opportunity to tell the world, yes, this is what's happening, and to advocate against these sweeps and to advocate against, or host side events to show people what is actually happening. I mean, these are not simple things to do, but I don't think the solution is to cancel the events, but rather to use every opportunity to focus world attention on what is trying to be swept away, on the poverty, on, the treatment of immigrants, the treatment of homeless people, the treatment of marginalized communities, of minoritized communities. Let's take that as an opportunity.
Our thanks to Maria Foscarinis. She's the author of And Housing for All, The Fight to End Homelessness in America. We'll be reading. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much, Nii-Quartelai. I appreciate it.
We appreciate you. We've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. The quiet part out loud when we come forward.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm LA City Councilman Kern Price, inviting you to join us on Saturday, June the 14th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. as we cut the ribbon on the brand new Enel Woods Park at 8703 South McKinley Avenue. Thanks to a generous donation from Heal the Bay, the park features smart irrigation, stormwater capture systems, and space for local wildlife to thrive. And we've built a walking trail, picnic areas, native landscaping, and quiet spaces for families to gather, relax, and connect. This is part of a much larger effort to expand green spaces across South LA with 3 new parks in the works, a first-of-its-kind community center coming soon, and plans to connect it all through the South LA Greenway. So mark your calendar for Saturday, June 14th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and come celebrate a greener, stronger South LA at NL Woods Park. I'm also pleased to sponsor the Climate Justice plus Black Health Symposium, moderated by Tavis Smiley, live on C-SPAN, Wednesday, June the 18th, from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Nate Holden Performing Arts Center. Just a reminder to sign up right away at the KBLA1580.com website to join me, Mayor Karen Bass, Congresswoman Sidney Kamlader-Dove, Tennessee State Representative Justin Pearson, Dr. Cornel West, former Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., the Sierra Club's Ben Jealous, and other black influencers in the climate and health fields as we continue to amplify the connection between climate and poor health outcomes for our people. Thank you for listening. I'm Councilman Curran Price.
May 6th was World Asthma Day, and it's a critical time to raise awareness about your asthma. Did you know that Black Americans are approximately 5 times more likely than white Americans to visit the emergency department due to their asthma? Managing your asthma is possible with regular checkups, avoiding known triggers, using prescribed medications correctly, and creating an asthma action plan with your healthcare professional. An action plan is a personalized plan you create with your doctor that shows you what to do and what medications to take to help control your asthma when you're having a hard time breathing or having an asthma attack. Stay aware. Have a plan because your health matters. For more tips and resources on managing your asthma, visit luma-edu.com. luma-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
We face tragedy,
but we don't fall into despair.
We continue our work to build a more perfect union.
You've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and it is time for the quiet part out loud. Now, listen, as big tech grows more involved in Gaza, Muslim workers are wrestling with a spiritual crisis. The Guardian is reporting on someone by the name of Ibtal Abu-Saad. It's a real person who was fired by Microsoft for protesting the company's work with the Israeli military during celebration of the firm's 50th anniversary. The first of 2 emails went to all of her colleagues. She appealed to their universal humanity and urged them to stand against Microsoft's contracts to provide cloud computing software and artificial intelligence products to the Israeli Defense Forces. Then she sent a second email to the Muslims at Microsoft email list. Its subject line read, "Muslims of Microsoft, our code kills Palestinians." You see, with her email, Abu-Saad told The Guardian that she wanted Muslim staff of the companies such as Microsoft and Google and Amazon to stop regarding the question of whether they organize against their employers' work with the IDF as an issue of secular or professional ethics. It was a question of Islam, of their faith, she argued. Well, there's been protests within American tech companies against their contracts with Israel and its military since the start of the war in Gaza. There have been walkouts. There have been vigils. Offices have been taken over and op-eds have been written, and some staff have resigned, and some, well, they've been fired for their activism. But as the war endures and Palestinians in Gaza are being starved, forcibly displaced and killed, and the contracts have survived, there's a growing group of Muslim staffers who are unsure whether they can religiously justify working at companies that they view as effectively defense contractors. The Guardian spoke to nearly a dozen Muslim employees of major tech companies who've been grappling with the question, many of whom asked not to be named for fear of professional repercussions and because they're continuing to organize inside these companies. But several of the staffers have resigned or are in the process of resigning. Some said that they aren't convinced that their employers have crossed a line that would force them to quit. Others worry that leaving the company would do more harm than good. But nearly all said that the public protests of Abu Saad and her co-demonstrator, Nii-Quartelai, has pressed the question. And at least for some, the footage of Abu Saad, a hijab-clad young woman staring down Microsoft's AI CEO, Mustafa Suleyman, and calling him a war profiteer, has been activating. Organizers at No Azure for Apartheid, NOAA, the worker-led group at Microsoft that Abu Saad belongs to and whose name refers to Microsoft's cloud computing platform, say they've heard from more staffers looking to get involved with the group since Abu Saad's actions, and they've heard from more than a dozen workers looking to resign or lodge a protest, and several more who have already done so. You may wonder, well, why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up, number one, because each and every day we end this show encouraging everyone in pursuit of building a more perfect union to do what you can from where you are with what you have. Number one. Number two, there's a raging debate that is afoot in this country and in the courts around religious liberty. This situation may be a canary in the coal mine. It's quite possible that we could see litigation around this, where folks were making a religious liberty argument as to how Microsoft and maybe other tech companies conduct business as it relates to its work in Muslim countries, and to the extent that its work impacts Muslim communities. I have a feeling this story has legs. Just remember, you heard it here first. That's where we're going to have to leave it. My thanks to the entire village helps us produce a more perfect union each and every day. My thanks to our executive producer, Tavis Smiley, to our sound engineer, Andy, to our show producers, Faraji and Art, and to each and every one of you, all of our leaders, learners, and listeners. We appreciate you, and we curate the show for you each and every day. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and you've been listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass says ICE raids targeting everyday people are unacceptable and called for them to end.
These aren't the criminals the administration is allegedly targeting. These are mothers and fathers, restaurant workers, seamstress, home care workers, everyday Angelinos trying to make a living.
She joined